It changed movie musicals forever by bringing murder to the dance floor. Before this masterpiece hit theaters, Hollywood musicals were cheerful escapes filled with tap shoes and happy endings. Then came a film that opened with street gangs prowling the concrete of New York City. The tension was real. The switchblades were sharp. The choreography was treated like warfare. West Side Story, 1961, shattered box office records and redefined what a musical could be. It dominated the Academy Awards and left a cultural scar that still has not healed. But behind the stunning wide shots and soaring high notes, the production was a battlefield. Directors were fired, voices were secretly erased, actors were pushed to the brink of physical collapse under the scorching Manhattan sun. The story behind the cameras is darker than the tragedy on screen. 20 facts, counting down. Fact 20. Audrey Hepburn was the original choice to play Maria. When Maria spins in the bridal shop holding a white dress, audiences see the young actress Natalie Wood. The producers initially wanted a much bigger star for the leading role. Executive producer Walter Mirisch heavily pursued Audrey Hepburn in early 1960. Hepburn was pregnant at the time and ultimately declined the physically demanding role. The studio then tested multiple actresses on the massive sound stages at the Samuel Goldwyn Studio. Natalie Wood won the part, securing a massive contract worth $250,000. Wood was a major star, but she was not a trained singer. The film relies on Maria looking innocent, while Tony reaches through the chain-link fence to hold her hand. Wood delivered the emotional fragility required for the tragic romance. Her casting caused immediate tension because she demanded total control over her makeup and lighting. Director Robert Wise agreed to her terms to keep the production moving forward. The iconic role defined her career, even though she described the filming process as highly stressful. Fact 19. Natalie Wood did not sing her own songs in the film. When Maria stands on the fire escape singing into the night, the voice belongs to someone else. Musical director Johnny Green hired professional singer Marni Nixon to dub all of the high notes. Wood recorded her own vocal tracks in the studio, believing her voice would be used in the final cut. The producers secretly decided her vocals were not strong enough for the complex score. Nixon spent weeks in the recording booth on October 10, 1960, matching her singing to the lip movements of the on-screen actress. Wood was furious when she finally discovered the deception. She felt betrayed by the production team and the studio executives. Nixon received 0 screen credit and only a flat fee for her incredible vocal performance. The secret was kept from the public for years to protect the marketing campaign. This practice was common in Hollywood, but Nixon called it a ghost job. Today, Nixon is legendary for being the invisible voice behind multiple classic films. The opening scene was filmed in a neighborhood scheduled for demolition. The jets walk in unison down a rubble-strewn street during the prologue. The production team needed a gritty, authentic urban landscape for the opening dance sequences. They found the perfect location at the intersection of West 68th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. The entire area was condemned to make way for the construction of the Lincoln Center. The demolition crews literally paused their wrecking balls so the dancers could perform on the cracked pavement. Filming began on August 8, 1960, utilizing the real crumbling brick walls as a dramatic backdrop. The location provided a gritty reality that no Hollywood soundstage could ever replicate. By the time the film premiered in late 1961, those exact streets had been completely wiped off the map. It captures a ghost town hidden within the heart of Manhattan. The raw environment heightened the aggressive energy of the dancers. The prologue remains a stunning historical document of a lost New York neighborhood. Fact 17. Elvis Presley was officially offered the leading role of Tony. Tony stands in the dark alley, looking up toward a single lit window. The producers desperately wanted a famous music idol to attract younger audiences. They sent a formal script to Elvis Presley, hoping his rock and roll edge would fit the street gang aesthetic. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, advised him to reject the project. Parker believed a movie about gang violence was bad for business. Presley turned down a salary of $750,000. The role eventually went to actor Richard Beymer, who brought a much softer, theatrical innocence to the character. Boehmer often struggled with the intense physical demands of the production. Many critics later argued that Boehmer lacked the rough edge necessary for a former gang leader. If Presley had accepted the offer, the musical tone of the entire film would have shifted drastically. The king of rock and roll missed out on starring in the greatest movie musical of the decade. Co-director Jerome Robbins was fired halfway through the film production. The Jets and Sharks violently clashed during the mambo dance at the gymnasium. Choreographer Jerome Robbins demanded absolute perfection from every single dancer on the floor. He insisted on hundreds of takes for minor movements, causing severe delays. The production fell severely behind schedule by late 1960. United Artists executives panicked when the budget swelled past $5 million. They fired Robbins, leaving Robert Wise to finish directing the dramatic scenes alone. The cast was devastated by his departure, as Robbins was the creative genius behind the aggressive dance style. Robbins had essentially weaponized ballet for the street gang fights. Even though he was banished from the set, his meticulous work during the first half of production defined the visual style of the movie. Wise honored the remaining choreography notes to ensure the film felt cohesive. Robbins later won an Academy Award for his directing work, despite being escorted off the property. Fact 15. The dancers suffered severe injuries on the concrete playground set. Action on the playground basketball court features dancers jumping off high steel fences. The outdoor prologue was filmed during a brutal summer heat wave. The temperature on the asphalt reached over 100 degrees. Dancers wore heavy denim jeans and long-sleeve shirts while performing aggressive leaps. Multiple actors collapsed from heat exhaustion and required immediate medical attention on the pavement. Paramedics treated severe shin splints, blown-out knees, and bleeding blisters every single day. The choreography required the men to land on solid concrete instead of padded wooden studio floors. Assistant choreographer Tucker Smith had to constantly modify movements to protect the exhausted cast. The sheer physical agony translated perfectly into the angry, tense energy seen on screen. The sweat staining their brightly colored shirts is entirely real. The brutal conditions forged a deep bond among the background dancers. They suffered together to capture the most explosive opening sequence in cinema history. Fact 14. Censors forced the writers to change lyrics about police officers. The Jets mock the local police officer inside a dusty neighborhood garage. The song heavily criticizes the juvenile justice system and the failure of social workers. The original Broadway stage lyrics contain profanity that film censors absolutely refused to allow on screen. Lyricist Stephen Sondheim had to rewrite the sharpest jokes to secure a general audience rating. The studio executives feared a massive boycott if the gangs insulted the police too aggressively. They replaced raw street language with softer slang like "bug off." The compromise infuriated Sondheim, who felt the teenagers sounded completely unrealistic. Despite the softened language, the dynamic performance of the actors sold the rebellious attitude. The acrobatic flips over the parked cars distract from the cleaner vocabulary. The number remains a brilliant piece of dark comedy about broken youth. It proves that aggressive physical acting can overcome sanitized dialogue. George Chakiris won an Oscar despite having very few spoken lines. Bernardo brandishes a silver switchblade menacingly under a glowing street lamp. George Chakiris commanded the screen using pure physical intimidation rather than extensive dialogue. He relied entirely on his posture, glaring eyes, and sharp dance movements to establish dominance. His performance in the rooftop dance numbers is electric and aggressive. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences recognized his incredible physical acting. He won the award for Best Supporting Actor on April 9, 1962. Chakiris originally played the leader of the opposing gang, Riff, in the London stage production, before switching sides for the film. His transition from a stage jet to a cinematic shark gave him a unique perspective on the rival dynamics. He brought a quiet, lethal dignity to the character of Bernardo. The victory proved that a powerful performance in a musical does not require endless monologues. A single glare across a crowded gymnasium was enough to secure cinematic immortality. Fact 12. The studio applied dark makeup to every single Puerto Rican character. Anita dances fiercely on the rooftop wearing a vibrant purple dress. The makeup department was ordered to darken the skin of all the actors playing sharks. This included legendary actress Rita Moreno, who is actually Puerto Rican. The producers wanted a stark, high-contrast visual difference between the two rival gangs. Moreno strongly protested the heavy uniform brown makeup, calling it thick and unnatural. She argued that Puerto Ricans have a wide variety of beautiful skin tones. The makeup artists ignored her complaints and applied the exact same dark shade to everyone. It was a deeply flawed Hollywood practice that stripped the actors of their natural complexions. Despite the insulting cosmetic decisions, Moreno delivered a fiery, complex performance that transcended the terrible makeup. She won an Academy Award for her breathtaking emotional depth. Her passionate defense of her character remains a towering achievement in the film. The actors used real weapons during early fight scene rehearsals. Riff and Bernardo circle each other under the highway overpass holding knives. Director Robert Wise wanted the actors to feel genuine danger and respect for the weapons. He handed them real sharpened switchblades during the initial weeks of rehearsal. The actors quickly realized how heavy and terrifying the metal blades actually were. After several close calls, the prop department replaced the real blades with dull rubber duplicates. The rubber knives allowed the actors to perform wild, sweeping lunges without risking a fatal stab wound. The intense fear generated during those early rehearsals permanently altered their body language. When Bernardo lunges forward and misses, the frantic scramble backward feels entirely real. The camera captures genuine adrenaline pumping through their veins. The fight sequence is beautifully choreographed, but feels terrifyingly chaotic. The transition from graceful dancing to brutal violence remains shocking. Fact 10. The cast was ordered to maintain absolute segregation behind the scenes. Tony and Maria hold hands quietly in the back of the bridal shop. To build genuine animosity, the directors forbade the actors playing jets from socializing with the sharks. The two groups were forced to eat at separate tables during lunch breaks. They used different dressing rooms and were encouraged to play cruel pranks on one another. The psychological manipulation worked flawlessly to create intense on-screen tension. When the two gangs stare each other down at the neighborhood candy store, the hatred is palpable. The actors truly annoyed each other after weeks of forced isolation. This method acting approach was highly unusual for a major studio musical. The hostile atmosphere made the brief moments of romance feel incredibly fragile. The strict segregation ensured that the tragic ending carried maximum emotional weight. The tension on set was just as sharp as the switchblades. Fact 9. The massive camera lenses severely distorted the edges of the film. A wide shot of the New York skyline opens the breathtaking movie prologue. The filmmakers chose to shoot on Panavision 70mm film to capture epic scale. This massive format required incredibly heavy cameras that were difficult to move quickly. The specialized wide lenses bent the light at the extreme edges of the frame. If a dancer stepped too far to the left, their body looked horribly stretched and warped. The cinematographer, Daniel Fapp, had to keep all the fast-paced action tightly in the center. The camera operator struggled to keep focus while the actors sprinted across the pavement. The massive equipment made the intimate, emotional scenes incredibly claustrophobic to film. The technical limitations forced the directors to stage the dances like giant theatrical paintings. The result is a visually stunning picture with incredible depth and vibrant color. The heavy cameras grounded the soaring musical numbers in gritty reality. Richard Beymer heavily criticized his own performance for decades after release. Tony climbs the iron fire escape to reach the balcony above the street. Actor Richard Beymer felt totally miscast and deeply uncomfortable during the entire production. He later confessed that he hated his own performance because it felt too weak and theatrical. Beymer was surrounded by aggressive, highly trained dancers and felt physically inadequate in comparison. He often clashed with director Robert Wise over the emotional direction of his character. Beymer wanted Tony to be tougher, but the studio demanded a soft, romantic lead. He skipped the legendary film premiere in late 1961 because he dreaded watching himself on the giant screen. Despite his harsh self-criticism, Millions of fans fell in love with his gentle portrayal of the doomed lover. His quiet demeanor perfectly balanced the explosive violence of the surrounding street gangs. His performance serves as the emotional anchor for the entire violent narrative. Russ Tamblyn refused to dance in the film until the directors compromised. Riff leaps completely over a parked car during the opening street brawl. Actor Russ Tamblyn was a trained acrobat, not a classical ballet dancer. He hated the delicate ballet-style arm movements that Jerome Robbins originally choreographed for his character. Tamblyn argued that a tough gang leader would never pose like a graceful ballerina on the sidewalk. He threatened to walk off the set entirely if the movements were not changed. Robbins finally relented and incorporated Tamblyn's raw acrobatic skills into the routine. The new choreography featured brutal punches, aggressive tumbling, and highly athletic street fighting. The compromise created the iconic aggressive dance style that defines the movie. When Riff slides across the dusty pavement, it looks like a calculated military strike. Tamblyn transformed a graceful dance into a terrifying display of physical dominance. His rebellion against the choreographer saved the visual integrity of the gang. The wardrobe department used strict color theory to manipulate the audience. The Jets and Sharks danced wildly at the gym, where colors violently clash. Costume designer Irene Sharath assigned specific color palettes to each group to create visual conflict. The Puerto Rican Sharks wore warm, passionate colors like deep reds, bright pinks, and rich purples. The American Jets were dressed in cool, aggressive tones like steel blues, mustard yellows, and pale greens. The color separation ensures the audience can instantly track the chaos during the massive fight scenes. When Maria wears a pure white dress, she stands out completely from the violent world around her. The bright fabrics popped incredibly well on the massive 70mm film stock. Sharath intentionally aged the clothes with dirt and sweat so they looked like real street garments. The meticulous color coding is a masterclass in subliminal storytelling. The vibrant costumes contrast perfectly with the gray concrete of the city streets. The most difficult musical number almost sent the cast to the hospital. Ice sings to the frightened gang members inside the dark underground garage. The song required the dancers to perform explosive, aggressive movements in a cramped, enclosed space. The actors wore heavy jackets and knee pads while sliding violently across the dirty concrete floor. The sequence took over a week to film, requiring dozens of agonizing retakes. The physical exhaustion was completely genuine as the men gasped for air between takes. One dancer literally shattered his knee during a complicated aerial flip. The sheer intensity of the performance perfectly captures the explosive anxiety of teenagers hiding from the police. The smoke-filled garage amplifies the claustrophobia and desperation of the terrified gang. The brutal choreography makes the song feel like a ticking time bomb waiting to detonate. It is widely considered one of the most physically demanding dance routines ever recorded on film. The final script was heavily altered to avoid an even darker conclusion. Chino holds the black pistol tightly while walking down the dark street. In early drafts of the original stage play, Maria was supposed to die alongside Tony in a double suicide. The creators eventually realized that leaving Maria alive to face the consequences was far more punishing. The film strictly follows this devastating emotional choice. Maria must live with the crushing grief of losing everything she loves in a single night. When she screams at the rival gangs holding the weapon, her survival is a curse. The studio executives were terrified the ending was too depressing for a holiday release. They begged the directors to add a glimmer of hope to the final shot. The tragic ending remained untouched, forcing audiences to sit in stunned silence as the credits rolled. The refusal to compromise the tragedy elevated the film to a timeless cinematic masterpiece. The production budget exploded to become the most expensive musical ever made. The massive high school gym set was built entirely on a Hollywood soundstage. Creating the detailed, sprawling sets in California drained the financial reserves of United Artists. The extreme delays caused by the obsessive choreography pushed the final cost to $6 million. This was a staggering amount of money for a movie in 1961. The studio executives gambled everything on the massive 70mm production value. If the film had failed at the box office, it would have bankrupted the entire company. The massive investment paid off instantly when audiences flooded theaters worldwide. The film grossed nearly $44 million during its initial theatrical run. The incredible financial return proved that audiences craved mature, visually spectacular storytelling. The massive sets and vibrant costumes set a new expensive standard for Hollywood blockbusters. Stephen Sondheim deeply regretted the lyrics he wrote for the female lead. Maria sits quietly on her bed, singing about feeling pretty and bright. Lyricist Stephen Sondheim hated this famous song, calling the words incredibly embarrassing and simple. He felt that a young working-class girl in New York would never use such poetic, flowery language. Sondheim begged the producers to let him rewrite the track to sound more authentic to the street. The producers absolutely refused, arguing the song was already a massive hit on Broadway. Sondheim spent the rest of his legendary career mocking his own work on this specific track. Despite his harsh criticism, the joyful innocence of the song creates a crucial emotional contrast. It makes the subsequent violence feel even more devastating and tragic. The song remains beloved by millions, completely ignoring the creator who wished it had been erased. It is a brilliant moment of pure happiness before the nightmare begins. The movie won 10 Academy Awards and permanently changed cinematic history. Maria stands weeping over Tony as his lifeless body rests on the concrete. The devastating finale cemented the film as an undeniable artistic triumph. The picture dominated the Oscars on April 9, 1962, taking home the ultimate prize for Best Picture. It holds the record for the most Academy Awards ever won by a movie musical. The fusion of dangerous street violence with soaring classical music had never been executed with such perfection. It proved that a musical did not need a happy ending to achieve legendary status. The gritty, location-based prologue changed how directors filmed urban environments forever. The legacy of the film is untouchable, influencing every modern movie that blends aggressive choreography with dramatic storytelling. The scars left by the Jets and the Sharks are permanently etched into Hollywood history. It remains a masterpiece of tension, rhythm, and heartbreak. The switchblades have been put away, but the legacy of the turf war remains untouched. From fired directors to secret singers, the creation of this masterpiece was a battle of its own. If you want more uncovered histories of Hollywood's greatest films, hit that subscribe button right now. The camera never stops rolling, and the truth is always hidden just out of frame.